And away we go. It's the DFS Alert presented by Osmo.com. Dan Strafford, Dave Loughran along with you on this Friday morning, getting ready for a 10-game National Basketball Association slate. Dave, how the hell are you doing?
I'm doing good, fella. Doing good. Hanging out, watching some basketball, hoping to stay alive through this pandemic.
We can all hope. The DFS world would not be the same without you. But I have to, I don't know if I talked about it on yesterday's pod. I decided to play rec basketball Wednesday night. It's the first time I've played organized basketball in probably 15 years. Got through it. We only have 5 guys. You play roll hockey regularly where you only have, the allotted number of players show up and you have to play the entire time and you hate life while it's happening. And when you win, you're proud. And we won 63-62. I have not felt more like death than when I was walking out of the gym. I thought I literally might not make it home driving because I was so out of shape and so tired.
I'm honestly surprised you felt worse after the game than you did when you woke up this morning.
Oh, no. And that's the thing. As we record on Thursday night, the day of sitting at my desk for work, I got up at one point and like when you're just sore as hell, I couldn't move.
Okay, that makes more sense then. Yep. Makes perfect sense.
I'm saying it was more the respiratory cardiac scare last night of just being winded as all hell. And then today is just sore muscles. But we're gonna run it back. They want me to come back. I wasn't bad enough to not be invited back. So we're gonna do it.
It's a success.
Made a couple of shots, played some defense, didn't break anything. Those are all bonuses in my world when it comes to
thing, man.
athletic endeavors.
I took the dog for a walk yesterday. Could not get out of bed this morning.
That's rough, man.
No, I play hockey every Wednesday, and I just got new skates, right? My other skates I had for a while, so I splurged, right? Bought some nice skates.
You go Bowers? What'd you go with?
I got a nice pair of Bowers, yeah. And I'll tell you something. I completely forgot that each stride should not take as much energy.
You had no ball bearings left in your wheels.
It's crazy, man. Like the amount of relief I felt, and I wouldn't get nearly as tired. It'd be 2-minute shift, and I'm like, all right, I'm okay. I can hang. It's men's league, so we have times where like 3-4 guys won't show up, and you got a 2-man bench.
Yep. I played roller hockey in my 20s, and we would have most nights where we'd have one sub. It was
oh yeah. There's also Ironman tournaments where you literally have 4 people the whole time.
No.
My back camera alert just went off. Got a cat poking around my yard.
A legitimate cat, or are you referring to a person as?
I wouldn't be so calm if it was an actual person.
That's fair.
That's why they're there, Dan.
I get it. What do you Nest? Where we get a promo code here for the backyard? No, just kidding. We are brought to you by Super Draft. That is where the promo code comes in here. You can use the promo code Osmo, get $20 of Super Bucks, and that is on a $100 deposit. We'll talk more about Super Draft and what they offer later on in the podcast. Also, promo code is Early Bird, gets you 50% off 1 week of Osmo Premium Plus at Osmo.com. Check out Osmo.com for that. Last promo, we are doing a giveaway if you comment on our podcast app. So iTunes and Stitcher are mainly the ones you can go to, but iTunes being the main one. Go leave a comment about the podcast. The Powers That Be did not put a stipulation about the rating, but you all know Lofty and I do 5-star rating work. So you can just leave that 5-star rating. And then you get entered into a promo to win a subscription there as well. So do that, do all those things, keep supporting the podcast on YouTube, on iTunes, and throughout. We do greatly appreciate it. With the recent promo, we've rocketed up the charts over there on fantasy sports and sports. So do appreciate everyone being involved there.
Hugely appreciated. And by the way, we talk about like, hey, appreciate the thumbs up and everything. And look, you just want to watch the show. It's fine. We're happy to have everyone watch us. But when we say that stuff really does help us, it's all algorithmic at this point. So, any type of interaction, reviews, likes, ratings is really, it takes us a long way, and it's appreciated for sure.
the new love ballad coming out. It's all algorithmic, so it should be a good one. Let's talk.
Refuse to laugh at that.
You didn't. You did laugh though. Like you couldn't hold it back. It was that bad a joke that you had to let out the sigh laugh. It's fine. It's fine. It's a safe space here. We're going to talk about this 10-game slate. Quickly trying to take a look at injuries. Obviously, we've seen the late season NBA injury, really rear its ugly head over the past couple of weeks. We've had situations of rest. We've had clearly situations of clear injuries. We have a ton of Q tags coming into this slate. Giannis is probable. He has a Q tag. Luka is also now questionable with his thumb injury. Trae Young holds a questionable tag for Friday's game with an illness. We've seen, I don't think it's anything that's pandemic, but we've seen the flu and other situations go around the NBA. Karl-Anthony Towns remains out. Bam Adebayo is listed as probable with his ankle issue. This is all 8,500 and above on DK. Kyrie Irving remains out, obviously. De'Aaron Fox has a Q tag, and he is listed. He was out Thursday with an abdomen. We'll wait to see if that is. He has an abdomen, clearly, with an abdomen injury. We'll see.
I always found that interesting.
How you say that?
Out with a hamstring.
Well, that's why I love the NHL. It's just lower body or upper body. They don't talk about. They're like, oh, it's a lower body injury. Okay,
you're right. It's true.
That covers off on a lot. Let's see what else we got. Andre Drummond has been ruled out with a calf issue. His stay in Cleveland has been really strange, Dave.
It's unbelievably odd. I wish I could explain it, but I can't. And I mentioned this since Bickerstaff took over. Even in the 3 games that Drummond played, he has not seen a minute of fourth quarter action.
Yeah, it's really the small, the same lineup with Love and Thompson and the like there. So what else do we got? Kelly Oubre Jr. is out for the year. Clint Capella remains out. Serge Ibaka has a Q tag for Toronto. Let's see, due to right knee soreness. So I'm rolling through a ton here already. Dave, Jaren Jackson Jr. is out. Rashawn Holmes and Marvin Bagley III are still out. Clark is still out for Memphis. Herter has a Q tag. Kennard may be back. Malik Monk suspended indefinitely. Good job showing up there, Malik Monk. Bruce Brown, and we can continue on there. Jalen Brunson out. But clearly, we're at that time of the year where injuries are going to play a large part. And I remind everyone as a PSA, be there for lock. News is going to break. There's going to be things that change. You're going to have lineup changes like when Pirtle and Lonnie Walker swapped spots on Wednesday night, and Lonnie Walker was starting at the 4, and they brought Pirtle off the bench. Let's talk quickly here about point guard. We'll make our way through to center. We'll do our best to cover off on what is the first look top plays. Remember, you have the NBA Strategy Show Friday morning, deeper dive at 5 p.m., and then live before lock at 6 p.m. We have these 2 Q tags at the top, Dave, our 2 most expensive point guards. Doncic against Miami, Trae Young against Brooklyn. Let me get your take here. Do you think Trae Young is overrated?
Where's this question coming from?
I know Josh has talked about it before. Eddie had a screed on Twitter the other day about Trae Young, and it's more about defense. But from a DFS perspective, I want your
not
take.
Even remotely.
Okay. That's what I thought too, from a DFS perspective.
Defensively, he's been terrible. I had this conversation with Josh where Josh was like, I'd much rather have Bradley Beal. And the funny thing is, if you look at defensive plus minus, you have a defensive real plus minus. Trae Young's dead last in the league. Bradley Beal's second to last. So, or at least he was 2-3 weeks ago when we went over this. So, look, Josh with that stance could make a very good argument for it. There's no question. But no, I don't think he's overrated. And quite frankly, when it comes to DFS, I don't care about defense, right? Nobody really should. Actually, it makes him a better play because it makes the whole thing wonderful because Atlanta's so bad defensively that, when you're running Trae Young out there and you're getting monster fantasy totals from him, generally speaking, the whole game is going to be really appealing. But no, he's been excellent. He's been better than any of us could have ever imagined. Obviously, Luka Doncic is still the guy that I'm taking first overall if you redo that draft, and I'm not making the trade that the Mavericks and the Hawks did. But and Ayton's played really well too, so let's give him credit for his recent play. But it's Doncic, Trae Young, and Ayton for me. No, I love what I've seen from him, and in all seriousness, there's no reason not to like him at 10-5. Yes, it's a big slate, no question about it. But Towns is out. So just looking at the guy, there aren't that many 10K plus options on this slate. Giannis is expected to play against OKC. They're double-digit favorites, but OKC is a good enough team. Now, mind you, the Thunder are playing their second of a back-to-back. They clawed their way out of a huge hole on Thursday night. Huge hole on Thursday night against the Sacramento Kings. And did they end up winning? The game just ended. Let me pull this up because they were down by like 19 points midway through the third quarter and tied it up. They ended up, 14 seconds left. Looks like they're going to take this, but that's a tough trip going, hard fought front to back type win that was competitive throughout, traveling to Milwaukee to play your second of a back to back. That feels like, that feels pretty ominous there. If you're OKC, actually Milwaukee laying 10 points. I kind of like that, just knowing the situation. So you have him, and then you have Doncic against Miami. Doncic is always a viable play, right? It doesn't really matter who he's facing. But outside of those three or those two and Towns, who's out, you have Trae Young at 10-5 on DraftKings. And I think he's a more than strong play here in what should be one of the highest projected scoring games of the day. I don't believe we have a total on it quite yet, but I'm happy to look that up.
I don't see one yet.
Yeah, I don't see one yet either. But it's probably going to be 238 or something like that. I like Trae Young, yeah.
All right. What else do you have here at point guard? Doncic, you already talked about. 10-7, you talked about more from the draft perspective. Miami matchup tends to be a tough one from a defensive perspective. We have D'Angelo Russell at 88 against Orlando. Karis LeVert is point guard eligible. Maybe we save him for small forward. You have Drew Holiday at 82. Lowry, Mitchell, Jimmy Butler, point guard eligible at 7,900. Dinwiddie with Kyrie Irving out against Atlanta, maybe a bit enticing at 79. How does the rest of the top tier break down for you?
Yeah, let's take a look at Utah for a minute. I tweeted something late last night. This has been a really strange Utah team. So I just want to read this to you because you'll probably find it as strange as I do. Since the start of January, so over the last 2 months, this is what the Jazz win streaks. This is what their wins and losses look like. I'm just going to go game by game, okay? Or I'm sorry, streak by streak. Most recently, dating back to January, lost 4. They're currently on a 4-game losing streak. All of them at home. Won 4. Lost 5, won 4, lost 1, won 10. So 10-1, 4-5, 4-5. It's or 4-4. What a weird, like, for a good basketball team, it is strange that they can fall into such huge holes and not be able to dig themselves out and then just rip off 10 straight wins. So it's a strange team. I think they come in another home game, 5 straight. I think they beat up on Washington pretty good here. And Mike Conley, there's been questions on whether or not Quinn Snyder wants to keep him in the starting lineup, but he will be in the starting lineup. Actually, there was an earlier report 2 days ago that he was removed and Ingles was starting, but it seems like Conley it did start and probably will start again. If that's the case, $5,100 Conley against Washington is very appealing. We can throw Mitchell into the mix at 8K, but I've got to tell you, I guess I'll just bring up Karis LeVert here. While I don't mind Mitchell, I know Karis LeVert's getting up there in price, but I actually like him at a comparable price to Mitchell. Yep. I mentioned this to Adam on the Deeper Dive the other day, but since Irving went down in the beginning of February, Karis LeVert leads the team in usage and per minute production. He's second in assists behind Dinwiddie, but he's clearly taking over that go-to scoring role. And you've seen it all come into focus with some huge games from LeVert. And I'm not opposed to paying for him. Again, really high-scoring game, one of the best matchups in the league against a fast-paced, bad defensive squad in the Hawks.
Yeah, LeVert's a name that, I think has just so much upside. DK obviously gives us the option here of playing him at forward or guard or point guard or small forward, which gives us a lot of leeway, obviously utility as well. But I think he's still at this price point of 8,300 is fairly priced. I don't think he's overpriced. I don't necessarily think he's underpriced, but I do think he still has considerable upside in this matchup with Atlanta to put up some big numbers. He's been doing a ton for the Nets. The usage is obviously up there, but taking a lot of threes. He's doing a little bit of rebounding, assists. The steals are up as well. So there's a ton going on for LeVert that seems to really make him a top option, or at least a very good option on this slate. Any other point guards that you want to mention before moving on to shooting guard?
Yeah, Zion Williamson in the lineup has created a strange dynamic, but I think Lonzo Ball against Cleveland has got to be an appealing play here. Not a priority, but you're not getting him at an egregious price point, so I think that's perfectly fine. Outside of that, right now value is a little bit scarce. You have guys like Melton, with Memphis guys injured, and Taylor Jenkins probably going to continue to go small in a lot of spots. Melton last time out against Houston, they got trashed, played 24 minutes, 19 against Clippers. They also got trashed. I think if a game stays close, and there's no reason this one shouldn't against the Clippers team playing their second of a road back-to-back, that, Melton could end up being a decent value option. But ultimately, right now at least, Mike Conley feels like the best value here at 5,100. And then once you get past that, it gets like John Morant is fine. The wheels are kind of falling off this young Memphis team, though. Not sure you've noticed. It's looked ugly for them. They've run into a buzzsaw twice, though, with a Clippers team that got George and Beverly back for their first game, and then against a Houston team that can't miss from three. So I don't want to put too much of that on them, but they've gotten smoked. It's a pretty deep position for 10 games, and there's a couple guys eligible here that we'll get to at shooting guard and small forward.
Just to touch on it, with Monk out, it's just too tough a matchup against Toronto for Rozier or Graham to be in anybody's plans, right?
They are a dreadful basketball team.
Yeah,
they really are. I don't know what show I mentioned it on, but I'll throw it out there one more time just to give you an idea of what I mean by this. And sure, it's a relatively small sample, but they did score 107 against the Knicks. Fine. But 80 against Indy, 86 against Brooklyn, 103 against Chicago, 87 against Detroit. I mean, they're scoring fewer than 90 points a lot recently, and that's very concerning. By the way, if Fox is out, Corey Joseph played almost 36 minutes yesterday, and luckily enough, you got 11 assists and 3 steals from him. Only attempted 7 shots, had 6 points. Not pretty. If you're looking for value, though, he probably will get another 32, upwards of 35 minutes if it stays close. He's $3,500.
All right, let's talk some shooting guard next. We do get some more MPE here. Looks like Bradley Beal is now shooting guard small forward eligible on DK. They had for a couple of games here really locked down on some players with just single position eligibility. I will point out Giannis is still just power forward. We'll talk about that later on. Obviously, Beal at 9,700 against Utah. Drew Holiday has a multi-position. Butler, Dinwiddie, Mitchell, all we've talked about a little bit. At least we talked about a Fournier is 6,500. He's a shooting guard, small forward. Malik Beasley taking a ton of shots for Minnesota at 6,200. Seth Curry is at 5,800 for Dallas. What do you like at some of the top end or upper part of shooting guard for this slate?
Yeah, I don't see myself getting to Beal here. Feels like a spot that traveling east to west against a Jazz team that you would think they've played poorly of late, particularly in the second half. I like Jazz first half in that one too. By the way, they've been collapsing in the third quarter and playing well in the first half. But I just don't think Washington has the firepower. And to kind of put that in context, Bradley Beal went back-to-back games with 50 points, and they lost both of them. So it kind of goes to show you what type of a team as a collective they are, and it's not pretty. So I don't see myself getting to Beal. Drew Holiday's fine. I mentioned Mitchell against Washington. It does feel like a bit of a blow-up spot here. You'd love if Conley was still out, makes Mitchell a far more appealing play, but I still have interest in him here. Dinwiddie's a tough one for me. This is one of the tougher ones because, like I said, Karis LeVert has really been dominating possessions. Dinwiddie's still getting opportunities, but it's not close to what it was when Irving and LeVert were out. So I don't mind Dinwiddie. I like that he's cheaper than Karis LeVert now, but I definitely still like LeVert more, even at a $400 increase. I have Dinwiddie as a pretty good point per dollar guy, just not going to be a top priority. And if it's between him and Devin Booker, who's facing Detroit and is $100 less expensive than Dinwiddie, I'm going to go with Devin Booker here.
All right. That makes sense. At the top end, trying to scroll through here. Is Beasley taking enough shots, playing enough minutes to justify a 6,200 price tag on DK?
The thing with Beasley, and I'm glad you brought it up because he is taking it. He is getting up a lot of shots. He's playing a lot of minutes. I'm just having a tough time relying on these peripherals, right? Like the 6 and 8 rebounds are going to be hard to come by. He went 3 straight games with a single assist. If he's not scoring, you're going to see some really ugly numbers there. And Orlando is a good enough team defensively. They're a good enough team at preventing a high or a high clip of threes made. And those are all things that concern me a little bit. So actually, I guess Orlando has fallen back a little bit in that category. They're allowing a pretty decent 3-point rate, but it doesn't really it's not going to persuade me enough to pay $6K plus. It's a 10-game slate, and I think you can find a lot better matchups here than Beasley. So not a top option for me here at the shooting guard position.
Anybody cheap? You have Joe Ingles against Washington. You have the likes of Garrett Temple against Atlanta at 4,300. You mentioned Melton over there at point guard. Cam Reddish for Atlanta gets Brooklyn, has a bit of upside in that matchup. Anybody from a cheap perspective for shooting guard for you?
Yeah, I'll keep this part simple. I think what you could do with all of these guys similarly priced, Temple, Cam Reddish, and even Joe Harris, who's playing a good amount of minutes, all of them similarly priced. I would just, if you're playing a lot of lineups, you just mix and match them. Otherwise, you're just taking a shot in the dark, hoping one of those guys gets hot from beyond the arc. I mean, seriously, with all 3 of those guys, you're hoping they can knock down some threes and fall into a few rebounds and assists at a cheap price because it's a fast-paced matchup.
Makes sense to me. Where if you're playing multiple lineups, make the best to mix and match what you can. Small forward is up next. I'll take this moment to remind you about superdraft.io. You can check them out with the promo code AWESEMO. Gets you $20 on your $100 deposit. They are changing the way DFS works. They have their multiplier, no salaries. You're just choosing players based on their multiplier. Harden can be 1x, and then somebody around the $7,500 on DraftKings can be like 1.3 or 1.4 Lofty, right in that range. So you can check out how you build a lineup and pretty much pick the players you want and go from there. They are growing. So if you want to check out some of these growing prize pools over there, use that promo code AWESEMO to get yourself that $20 extra on a $100 deposit as you go each and every day on over to superdraft.io. Yes, I read your Slack message, so appreciate it. I think, I don't know if EMAC brought it up. EMAC may have told me about your super draft.
Well, the Josh gets in it. So now whenever a show ends, he doesn't kill the stream until I'll be like presented by, and then he jumps in, not on the camera. It's great. It's great. They should love us for that, man. Now everyone's going to be singing that in their sleep.
That's all we need. Let's continue on here. Talking small forward, Kawhi is 9,500.
LeVert's Eilish like sleepwalking. Super jet.
I wouldn't doubt it. This kid has the craziest amount of night terrors.
Yeah, you told me that.
Oh man,
that would be a pleasant dream.
Right. Well, she does have. The other night, for the first time ever, she said, Nora, which is her oldest sister. She goes, Nora, I love you. No, I love you. In her sleep, dead sleep. I was like, oh, there are some decent thoughts happening in that brain overnight.
Sure.
Not
the
creepy,
terror
of that. Oh yeah. I mean,
I'm just kidding.
You love your siblings.
It's a good thing.
Her oldest sister's kind of rude to her most of the time, but hey, what can we do? Let's talk small forward. So Kawhi is 95. You have Beal, you have LeVert, who are multi-position eligibility. Obviously, if Giannis is out, Middleton at 7,600 becomes one of the bigger plays here. Same for if Luke is out, there's tons that will happen and lots of things that will cascade from there. Paul George, 7,100. So this is a guy that in years past has been one of the prime DFS options. Clearly, injuries have been a problem for him this year with the hamstrings. He's been playing middling minutes as he makes his way back over the past 2 games. Is that a price point for you that you see upside for George enough to say if he plays 28 to 32, it's worthwhile?
He's getting there. The problem is with these limited minutes, he hasn't really played that well. His shot just hasn't seemed right. Now, let me be fair to Paul George. If you've watched any of the Clippers over the last 2 games since he's returned, his defense has been stellar. Against Memphis, he locked them down. Against Phoenix late in that game when they were trying to make a late push, Paul George was spectacular. He's really struggled to shoot, though, man. 4 for 13, 3 of 11, 2 of 7, 3 for 15. A couple of these are before he went down. But if you remember, and I'm sure you do, was it last year? Yes. Now, Paul George got out to a really great start. He hurt that shoulder, came back, and literally wasn't the same for over a month.
Yep.
Now, this is a hamstring. But it feels like when Paul George returns from injuries, and sure, it's anecdotal because I don't have it all in front of me, but it feels like when the guy returns from injuries, he just is off and has to get right again. So it sounds crazy, but I feel like that price point on Paul George is appropriate, especially given that they have so many bodies that can put in work on the Clippers. I don't think you need to get there.
All right. What else do you have here? Kawhi, Middleton, clearly with Oubre out, some minutes open up for Phoenix. Not sure really where they go. Tim Hardaway Jr., what do you got at the rest of the top half of small forward?
Okay, so we'll get to value in a minute. Start at the top. Not going to Kawhi here. I think this will be a really, I shouldn't say a super slow paced game, but I definitely think it's going to be underwhelming from a fantasy perspective. And there's a number of reasons for that. The Clippers just have so many guys that can put up numbers, right? And it's really hard to figure out who it's going to be. The total on this game's 218.5 right now. So it's the furthest thing from appealing. We have several games where you're looking at much higher totals, and we don't even have totals on a couple where they're definitely going to be up there. Brooklyn, Atlanta, by the way, I'm seeing 234. So there's a few off. Here's one that surprises the hell out of me. Orlando and Minnesota at 236.5. Like,
I see 236, 236.5.
Feel compelled to bet the under there, but it's almost like a trap. I don't know. That
the under bet in any sport is the worst bet ever because you're praying for no points. It's just like if it's the worst.
Tell Ben Rossa that he loves that.
Oh, of course. You know what? Can't say I'm surprised.
Yep.
I can't say I'm surprised by that.
I hear you. But I'm saying the Magic play at the fourth slowest pace in the entire league.
I agree with you that it's calling for the under, but for some reason we're missing. We're missing something.
I know, and that's whenever I see something that's outrageous, instead of just jumping on it, I try and figure out if I'm missing something. You know, but Orlando, even over the last month, they're playing at the 6th lowest pace. So I wish I knew. I don't. I know Minnesota's playing at a lightning fast pace, 106 possessions per 48, but is that enough? Well, I guess we'll find out. It's a lot of points, though. Brandon Ingram against Cleveland's pretty solid. His price is coming up. I wouldn't say he's a must here. And then you start looking at some of these Charlotte guys, but I don't want to. I hate predicting blowouts, but it doesn't feel like they can keep games competitive on the road against a really good Toronto team. Miles Bridges, Cody Martin. Is it worth it? Maybe if they're cheap enough, but I don't feel compelled to pay, a mid $5K price point for Bridges and get 25 minutes from him. It just doesn't feel right, especially given that He's not even a per minute guy. So, you might see him pop up in some projections. At this point, I would try and steer clear of that. Matter of fact, the small forward position overall is not looking all that pretty. If you're thinking about maybe going off the radar a bit, James Ennis was playing 27, 28 minutes per game. This game has a 236.5 total. But even that on a 10 gamer, do you really feel any confidence whatsoever? Michael Porter Jr., is he going to get enough minutes? Dario Saric should get another start, hopefully get a solid amount of run. Last time out in that start for the injured Kelly Oubre, he played 31 minutes. He was, pedestrian at best. This is a better spot. I think he's fine, but keep in mind, we got Dario Saric's last game at 3,200. Now he's 48. So right. It's a huge difference in what type of value we're getting. And then the last one I'll throw out at you is Taurean Prince. Taurean Prince against Atlanta is cheap. Only played 25 minutes last game, though, which really surprised me because Wilson Chandler was out. And now Wilson Chandler is off the injury report. So it's hard for me to get on board with that one, too.
You didn't mention the revenge factor.
Oh, who am I missing?
No, Taurean Prince. He's playing against it, like, specifically. You didn't mention.
Yes.
I mean, come on. Your analysis, Lofty, has been slacking a little bit. Kidding, of course. Let's talk power forwards up next. Giannis is in Milwaukee playing Oklahoma City. He's 11-6. John Collins against Brooklyn. Pascal Siakam at 8,500. Aaron Gordon. Zion Williamson has been really dynamic. And, it's not padding his stats. We talked about it, I think, last week about the Z-bound, the fact that he is so quick to get his own rebounds. But there is something to that. There's something to him just putting shots up to get the rebound, to give himself position, to get, around guys. That has been very impressive with how athletic he is, especially coming back from the knee injury. Has been really fun to watch. Kevin Love gets New Orleans at 7,300. Christian Wood is at 7,200, has been playing pretty much mid-30s, low 30s minutes after Andre Drummond was traded away. Then we get into Gallinari, Bogdanovic, Nance. It gets pretty cheap pretty quickly here at power forward. Let's take the top end first. Giannis in play at 11-6. I assume a guy who can do it all at that price point when all the other expensive guys are either injured or potentially injured makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Of all of the high-priced guys, who do you like most?
Who do I like the most? Quickly looking, I'd say Trae Young at 10.5 and then Giannis.
Trae Young, 10.5 and then Giannis. All right.
I'll take the 1,100. I think Young has electric upside here.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to argue with that. I'd say when we're talking, let me see here. 1, 2, 3. So on a raw fantasy points, I've got Giannis first for sure.
Okay.
But you're also getting a discount on Trae. I'd go Giannis, then Trae, then Luka, but I really do like Trae. So I feel pretty good about that. And I'll say at power forward, the one issue with Siakam, man, is you're paying a mid 8K price point for him. And if you're projecting him for 36 minutes, do you really think he's playing 36 minutes? It's hard for me to say yes. And the reason this one's slightly easier to get away from, and I'm not saying I'm going to be loading up on either of these guys, but I'd probably rather pay the same price for John Collins against Brooklyn, $100 more. I'd rather pay the same price for Collins and feel okay about that in what should be a fast-paced game, but not only a fast-paced game, also a competitive game. Right now, you've got the Atlanta Hawks against Brooklyn. They're only 2-point dogs. So that's pretty nice as well. Aaron Gordon's played really well lately. And this is, man, paying this much for him is difficult for me to stomach, but let me break it down and maybe we can convince ourselves together. Okay. So number one, he's played 40 plus minutes in 3 of his last 4, 35 plus minutes in 5 straight. Okay. That's huge. Minutes are everything. That's way more than his season average. He's basically a per minute guy on the season. Okay. Number 2, rebounding really well lately. A lot of that comes with the territory when you're playing as many minutes as he is. He's shooting better. That can be streaky, right? 3 for 4, 3 for 4, 3 for 4 from 3-point range, 0 for 3 in that one game. But he's put up 50 plus fantasy points of 3 of 4, 40 plus in all 5 of those games or 35 plus minutes. But the biggest thing is, as I mentioned, over the last month, the Orlando Magic are averaging 98 possessions per 48. Minnesota Timberwolves are at 106. 106. That's a huge, huge pace up spot for Orlando. So normally I'd have no interest in Eric Gordon. But if he does end up being, let's say, very low owned and goes overlooked because of that price point, sure, I might actually be willing to get there, because if you're giving me 40 minutes in a close game, and I would expect this game to, who knows? Minnesota just beat Miami in regulation at home, which is insane. Orlando 7.5 favorites. I still think that Gordon could be a really intriguing play.
How do you break down this Memphis situation with Jaren Jackson Jr. out? Clark is out. Josh Jackson is 4,600. Just played 23 minutes last time out. He has shown to be an enigmatic potential star a few years back at this point, coming out of the NBA draft, has never really put it all together. You have Kyle Anderson, who is power forward eligible. Jordan Bell is a Memphis power forward / center, played just 6 minutes last time out. Is there a Memphis power forward who makes sense, or is this just a situation you stay away from?
I spent so much time with Josh on the Monday strategy show, and then so much time with Adam on the Wednesday strategy show, breaking down the Memphis rotation, because it's so difficult to know what they're going to do. And it's been made even more difficult due to the fact that the Clippers and Rockets blew them out of the water, right? So what you see here is the closing lineups of all bench players, because who the hell knows who's going to close? It's really tough to say. Is Jonas Valanciunas going to close these games against smaller teams if it's close? I have no idea. I really don't. And it's making it's super difficult to figure out what we should do with them against Sacramento. Harry Giles is playing more minutes now, so I think that you don't have to worry about that. But if Luke Walton decides that he wants Bjelica to come in and play those backup 5 minutes, and Giles only plays 7 minutes in the first and third quarter, then you see a similar situation where if Bjelica closes, Joval might not. Now, I don't think that should be an issue. I'd expect Giles to play another 25 minutes or so, which is a lot more than the 14 he had been playing a couple of weeks back. But anyone that tells you they don't have a tough time with this Memphis rotation is lying, because we just don't know. So we got a starting lineup of John Morant, Dylan Brooks, DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson, and John Morant last time out. Those guys in the first 3 quarters all played pretty significant minutes. Melton played 24, Joval 23, Morant 28, Kyle Anderson only 18, but Brooks played 30. None of them played in the fourth quarter outside of Melton. Your closing lineup, and I say closing, not really a closing lineup, your closing blowout lineup, these guys mopped up, was Jordan Bell, Dusty Hannas, whatever that means, Marco Gudrick, John Concher, and Gorgie Jang.
The name Dusty is just...
It reminds me of what's the movie with Ryan Reynolds? Dusty plays the guitar.
I don't think I know that reference.
And he's had a crush on the girl his whole life. She's his best friend.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Is it with? I'm picturing him in a movie with
Just Friends.
Just Friends.
You don't know Amy Smart, Anna Faris?
That's who I was picturing. Yeah.
Chris Klein. Yeah. That was Dusty, and my God, what a.
So I need to tell you a story offline, because I can't mention someone's name here on the podcast who has no affiliation with it. But her name,
probably not a good idea.
Is at any time I hear the name Dusty, I think I might have told you the story before, but anytime I hear the name Dusty, I think of this woman who I know from her previous job, and her last name and her first name combined are unfortunate. They're terrible together. So I will leave it at that. If you want to leave a comment over on YouTube with what your guess is of what her last name is, feel free. But I will tell Offie when we finish up this podcast because it's pretty damn bad.
The vice president of the International Olympic Committee that we had been hearing from because of the coronavirus.
Yeah, and I do need to tell you, Hong Kong authorities have placed a pet under quarantine because of a weak positive.
Poor fella. So, the guy's name is Dick Pound.
I mean, yeah. Oh, that's his actual name. Got it. Okay.
That's his name. Yeah, not the pet.
Like, how do you go by Dick at that point?
Right. I was going to say, just call me Richard.
Right. I mean, and
call
your parents are the worst people in the world.
Right. Call me John. Just don't call me Dick Pound.
Like, that's like people whose last name is Richards and they name their kid Richard. Like, they hate you. Like, they clearly like had that moment like, you were a mistake. We didn't really want you to come into this world.
Exactly. You will live with this forever.
But you are now Richards and enjoy that. Yeah. Dick
John Johnson's a good one.
Yep.
I don't mind that. I kind of like John Johnson. I wouldn't mind having that name.
What about Dick Johnson?
No, that's different. You can't have the same first and last name. Right?
It's like calling someone penis. Let's get off this topic and move on to centers and calm it down. Nikola Jokic, 9,600. Vucevic is 92. Adebayo here, I don't have much of a read on whether or not he's going to play. He did play Wednesday against the Timberwolves. He was a game time decision. I don't have much of a take one way or another. He's 88. He's been awesome.
You know what I noticed?
What's that?
You know when the president has to read a name that like he's not familiar with, and he kind of like
pauses.
Well, no, it's like Scaramucci. And like I noticed you do that with names that you don't feel comfortable pronouncing.
What Adebayo? Is that where?
Yeah, say it again.
Adebayo?
Yeah, Adebayo.
I go up at the end.
Yeah.
That's fair. It's a good call.
I just noticed
it is Adebayo, right?
It's the same change in what's the word? You know what I'm talking about.
Inflection.
Inflection, yeah. So yeah. I just found that
the
funny.
One thing POTUS and I have in common. So there it is. Let's go through the rest. Porzingis, Ayton, Gobert. These are just center eligible guys. Clearly a position that has a ton of talent. Where do you think the best matchups are? Or what do you think the best price points are to get an advantage here at center?
So DeAndre Ayton has been playing some pretty good basketball. Really impressed with what I've seen from him. You're going to get some ugly games from time to time, maybe a little foul trouble, some blowouts, but in the games where he's getting like big minutes, you're getting equal, if not production that surpasses those minutes by a lot. And I've been really impressed with some of these performances. Like 3 of his last 5 are 25 plus points and 17 plus rebounds. When you're putting up numbers, and 3+ stocks, steals plus blocks. It doesn't matter if you look like you're 60. When you're putting up numbers like those, that's really all that matters. And against Detroit here, Ayton does make for a really appealing play. I think that low 8K price point is more than reasonable on this slate. You get similarly priced guys like Porzingis. I like Ayton's matchup a lot better. Porzingis is playing well too. Both of them are playing great basketball, but give me Ayton over Siakam and Adebayo and all of that. I can't do it like you do. I'm trying. I'm trying. Next time I'll have to point it out.
I think you have to use the first name. I think that's part of it. If you say Bam Adebayo, it
gotcha.
It flows a little bit more.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense.
Just point of reference.
I do. See, when I don't have confidence in a name, I kind of mumble it.
Well, I mean, you've ruined me for Giannis. Like, I can't even say his last name in your presence. I don't even try it anymore. Like, Giannis, ABC, Greek Freak, that guy.
That's awesome. Even analysts get it like so different. I wouldn't even say wrong, but nobody says the name the same.
No.
But yeah, I like Ayton a lot. Vooch
and Titty Compo.
There it is. I still remember when he first came into the league, and you and I like Had to study that damn name just to get it right. Vooch, what do you think of Vooch at 9,200 though? Because him and Jokic are up there. Jokic has clearly turned this season around, at least for them in large part, but it's hard not to like Vooch against Minnesota. If this game really holds a 236.5, even if it's around that, that's a really high mark against a Minnesota team that's running out Naz Reid and James Johnson at the 5. Man, I like him quite a bit.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. Is just matchup wise, and if that over under is accurate, it's hard not to like him. 9,200. We haven't built a lineup. We haven't tried to construct anything here, but he makes as much sense as anybody else here at that price point and with the upside he has. Even if Towns was there, I'd say Vucevic has some upside. Towns has not shown any real want to play defense in his NBA career. I have a tough time necessarily paying all the way up to 9,200 when you have the likes of an Ayton against Detroit at 81. So I might say Ayton first at that price point and then Vucevic after that.
That's fair. You got Rudy Gobert too at 7,800. He's kind of fallen off a cliff recently. There's 0 shot volume. Not that you expect it, but the rebounding totals have been down. Right. 6 rebounds, by the way, against Houston. Explain that.
Right. You can't if you're rostering Rudy Gobert, you can't have single digit rebounds. Like it just
exactly. You can't have 11. You need 15 or more. I mean, seriously. I didn't watch that game in its entirety, but I honestly wonder if they just attempted so many threes that none of the rebounds were.
It's reasonable.
None of the rebounds were within the proximity of Rudy Gobert's reach. Because 6 rebounds against. But the reason I say this, Houston has the worst rebound rate in the league since they lost Capella. So that doesn't make any sense to me at all. It's pretty inexplicable. If we went back and watched it, I think it would make a whole lot more sense. Christian Wood too. Can't forget about Christian Wood. This guy's playing great, man. Double doubles in 3 of his last 4, and 5 of his last 7. You're just getting good production through and through from him, and big minutes. And they're not playing well. Why would they? They're not very good. But believe it or not, they're not getting absolutely annihilated either. In Portland, 3-point game, they almost won. In Denver, that was a 17-point game, but if you watched it, it was competitive up until about 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I think Christian Wood's another good option. Needless to say, center is stacked with quality players. And another one, I don't know if I'm going to get there, but he's on my radar. Larry Nance, 5,900.
Well, that's the price point. I like Larry Nance, DeAndre Jordan, Tristan Thompson, all are viable. Feel like they are in spots here. DeAndre Jordan playing more minutes for some reason than Jared Allen there for Brooklyn.
Allen fouled out in 18 minutes last game, by the way.
But it was even before the last game. DeAndre Jordan's been picking up more and more minutes for one reason or another for Kenny Atkins, playing in the 20s and played 37 minutes against Philadelphia, 23, 28. He's putting up some significant numbers in this matchup with Atlanta, who gives up significant points in the paint, significant rebounding. Seems to be viable. So you got Nance, Jordan, Thompson. This price point gives you, I think, a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, I think so too. Nance is gonna get 30 minutes again, so I would expect him to. Andre Drummond is expected to. Actually, he's already ruled out.
Yeah, he's out. Yeah,
he's already out. So Nance, DeAndre Jordan. That's an interesting one because you could find yourself in a position where Jared Allen comes out of the gate and is just crushing Atlanta.
Sure.
Or they need DeAndre Jordan. Atkinson runs the hot hand. We all know that, and if Jordan ends up being a hot hand, it could be solid. But I think Nance is safer for those minutes. Tristan Thompson, 5,700, not exactly a per minute monster, but he's still averaging north of a fantasy point per minute on the season, going up against New Orleans. Yes, they've been better defensively with Zion and Derek Favors in the front court, but if you're getting 30 minutes or more from him, he played 32 against Philly. Andre Drummond is out. I'm putting him at 32 again. Then that's also a pretty solid play. So once again, man, there's a lot to like at center. Definitely even deeper than point guard tonight.
All right,
and I didn't even mention $5,900 Serge Ibaka with Marc Gasol without a timetable to return. My God, it keeps. Oh, and here's the last one I'll give you. Two, because the minutes are very uncertain. Let's go with number one, John Henson. He is always on someone that if he's on the floor, he can give you decent numbers. Always a +1 per minute guy. It's just you never know if he's going to get any minutes. He's played 23 and 21 minutes over his last 2 games. They're going up against Phoenix. He's almost minimum salary. Don't think you need to get there on a 10 gamer. On yesterday's 4 gamer, you might have been able to make the argument there. And then the other one here, similar situation, because this game is going to be such a fast-paced affair. Bruno Fernando's played 20 and 22 minutes over his last 2. Now he's got Brooklyn. Is there anything there? I don't know. Maybe if you're desperate, those 2 guys are decent. But like there's so much value at the 5, 6, 8, 9K range at center that I don't see any way I'm going to go down to the bottom.
Yep, makes a lot of sense, and I think it reminds everybody to tune into the NBA Strategy Show, which is available on YouTube via live stream. Same for the deeper dive and live before lock. All those are free in front of the paywall. If you want projections, you want ownership projections, you want the premium article, which is the deep dive, you want to get behind the paywall, that is Osmo Premium Plus. You want to use that promo code EARLYBIRD, gets you 50% off your first week. Don't forget about superdraft.io. They are the next wave of DFS. Use the promo code OSMO. That gets you $20 Superbucks to use on the site after you deposit $100. You can also check out some Superdraft content over at osmo.com. I believe the projections are still free for Superdraft. I'll double check that.
Yep.
There you go. So they are in fact free. So you can check those out at osmo.com. Follow osmo_com for the giveaway. That means you're leaving a rating with your username over there on iTunes and wherever else you listen to podcasts. If you're listening somewhere else, there are plenty of podcast apps out there. Just screenshot a comment you left and send it to our Twitter handle. I'll talk to Nolan, make sure people who are using other apps are getting their due as well. And then don't forget, follow Lofty on Twitter, LOUGHY_D. Follow myself at Dan Strafford, Osmo_com. You find Lofty on Sirius 210, XM87, Saturdays and Sundays 3 to 5 now, right, Lofty, on both days?
Sir. You would know. You've been coming on with me each week, and they've been awesome segments.
I appreciate it. We've been talking some fantasy baseball season long.
I'd like to keep that rolling.
Yeah, I am game. I do like to talk baseball, and MLB DFS around the corner. So we're gonna have, I think, the best crew that DFS has to offer. So shilling a little bit here, not Kurt, but for the website to get you in there as well. Tons to look forward to when it comes to Major League Baseball DFS at osmo.com. With all that said, we wish you the best of luck on this Friday slate. We'll see you on Monday. Chris Rendon and Eric McPherson on the DFS Early Bird, presented by none other than Osmo